Reid's here from Popternative, speaking to Sam Reid about season 2 of Interview with a Vampire, going to be premiering May 12th on AMC. Welcome to the show, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You know, season two's really interests me because it's kind of like fresh start introduction for everyone for season 1, for everyone involved, for the audience member, yourself, the cast and crew. We've never kind of like seen these characters in this way before. What's it like for you returning for season 2 for this specifically with Lestat and everything? Are you comfortable with this character? Are you learning more? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I suppose, like Roland always treats treated this approach to this season like a new show. And so you can kind of look at it with fresh eyes. And we're in a new place, we're in a new country, we're in a new city. And obviously Lestat is dead. So there's kind of like a few things to work out with that. Yeah. But
I don't want to say it just in case, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, he's dead, Yeah. It's sort of like it's an adaptation of these books, and the books constantly change as well, and so we kind of we honor that. So
that's actually it's like you knew what I was going to ask. This is amazing, because my next question was like, I do find adaptations so interesting because they can go different ways. From an acting storyteller perspective, you can really kind of be attached to past source material, or you can kind of like leave it alone and do your own interpretations, because you have the books, you have the movie. What's that like for you with Lestat specifically with these 2 seasons? Are you kind of like invested in the source material that came before you playing this character, or are you kind of leaving it alone a little bit?
No, always going back to the source material, always. Particularly because Roland has done such an extraordinary job of adapting these books, and he does honor them, and he does, stay very true to the feeling and the kind of like sentiment that kind of runs beneath them all the time. Even though we adapt little things, we mostly stick true to the full coherent kind of plot of the books.
Yep.
So sometimes we talk about things that turn up in later books, so they all have to have a link. So you're always going back to the books, and sometimes when I don't really know how to interpret a scene that Roland's written, I'll go back and find a similar scene that turns up somewhere in the books and kind of blend that in.
100%. In a lot of ways, so much happens before you go to camera on a project, Sam, before, right? Like there's like kind of discussions about the characters, the table reads, everything, scripts and everything, and you go film this thing. And in a lot of ways, you can look at it as 2 separate journeys from a storytelling acting perspective, before filming and after filming. Do you see it as 2 different kind of journeys, or do you see it as one big journey with multiple steps?
No, it's one big journey. I mean, like, we make things all together. It's a huge collaborative effort, filmmaking, and there's so many people involved at every different stage, and you build these characters and these worlds together.
Yeah,
there's a lot of conversations that we have, and we do a lot of rehearsals for this show. We do a lot of discussions about the scripts, and then the design on this show is just phenomenal. Just that. So and that's very informative, and there's a lot of discussion. We talk about everything. We talk about individual characters' props. You get sent a whole bunch of options, and we discuss which ones are going to be the best ones, and if someone's going to wear a pair of glasses, or if anyone's going to carry a crucifix, or what kind of one, or it's a huge amount of effort on lots of different people's part. But that is all part of the process. And then 100%. The post, Roland is still making the show in post. He just completed it, but the show's still being created. The moments are still being, formed and pushed and found.
And it's interesting because the life of an actor is really kind of that on to the next journey, on to the next project. And then like, you wrap season 2 of Interview with a Vampire, you wait, you'd go work, like you go do other things. And then it resurfaces again when you have to do like press and we have a release date. Like it is interesting, right? To think about it like that.
Yeah, it's definitely a lifestyle. It's supposed to becoming a lifestyle as opposed to just a singular job.
Yeah, for sure. Vampire content has always been around, spooky season content, horror movies and everything, you know what I mean? Like Interview with Vampire, what I love about this show is it's such a genre bending show, but I do sometimes, even though, like it's not seen just as kind of like there's a lot of supernatural. I think there are some really terrifying kind of moments and horror movie kind of elements to the show, which I really enjoy. And we're seeing a big surge in popularity, Sam, in like horror movies and that kind of content these days. So I'm just curious from your perspective, maybe you haven't thought about it that much, but what's it like being part of that type of genre of content, like the horror stuff, the supernatural stuff, knowing that there is like a bigger appetite for that content these days? I don't know if you saw what I did there with a question.
Yeah, there's an appetite. um, Look, I think there's always like waves. I don't know, like with vampires, there's always waves of vampires.
Yeah.
We go through it all the time, but like it's not surprising to me. I mean, specifically Anne Rice is like sort of defined a lot to do with these sort of very human, emotive kind of monsters, and then examining like human psychology through the mind of these sort of like, you know, beasts.
Yeah.
So she really did that. So I'm not really surprised that it's coming back, or that, you know, that we're doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love horror. I think it's really fun. I think it's a great way to kind of examine, you know, certain aspects of society through a filtered lens, and it's not use that sort of metaphor. So I think vampirism is a great metaphor for lots of different things, like the outsider, and also, you know, identifying with the monster is a complex thing. It's a really fun challenge for an audience to kind of connect on a kind of, you know, personal level with the killer.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't necessarily think we should always be connecting with actual serial killers who really existed, but I think it's better to use metaphor and to use, you know, the acts that these characters do, these violent acts, as a way to kind of, you know, have a, you know, societal catharsis. So I'm all down for horror.
It's like experiment. It's like experimenting. Like it's like looking at humanity, right? Like discovering. Like I totally agree with you on that, because I'm a creative as well, and I was just in LA and I wrapped a short horror film that I wrote and produced. And yeah, thank you. And it's like, you know, it's one of those, like the whole like people are scary was kind of the first thing that came to mind, like when I was writing this thing. You know what I mean? Like exploring kind of humanity in like a slasher horror movie way. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Which is interesting. I'm really curious to hear your standpoint on this, because I talk to a lot of actors and storytellers, and it's 50-50, right? Some people say yeah, sometimes some people say no. What do you think about, at some point, like, I'm looking at, like, I think about the audience member always watching a show, right? Like I'm watching it, but I always love hearing like, what are other people going to think about when they're watching? It's different kind of takes. Maybe there's some episodes people will really gravitate towards compared to others. As an actor, when you're making Interview with a Vampire, are you ever conscious of the audience member watching the show, watching you as Lestat, while you're making it at all? Or does that happen completely after you wrap? I'm curious about that.
You try not to.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you really try not to. I don't think that's valuable in a way to be like, how's the audience going to think about this or feel about this? I mean, because you can't serve. I think it's a thing in life as well. You can't function operating purely, you know, being afraid of how people are going to perceive you. Otherwise, you won't be able to move. I think very aware though. Sometimes when we're making it, they were like, "Whoa, this is going to be quite impactful."
That's what that's what I mean too, right? Like, because I feel like naturally that will happen, right? Like you'll be at like base camp or something, you'll have those little conversations, right? Like,
usually it's when we're shooting it, because, you know, like when you read these things on a page, sometimes they're beautiful and it's extraordinarily written. But, you know, as we were saying before, there's so many people who, you know, add the ingredients to the show. So by the time you turn up and shoot it, it's like on a much higher and a bigger elevated level when you're looking around all these extraordinary costumes and, you know, the way that the shots are framed and you know, the brutality of even the makeup sometimes, you know, like, you know, with the amount of blood or things like that. So it becomes even more impactful. But I think that's exciting, you know. Like I think you sort of want to instigate a reaction. You don't want people to somebody told me the other day that there's a thing going on with producing called second window, so that there's this level of like when you're making a project, you're also expecting people to be scrolling on their phones. So
Yeah.
So
that it's so funny you bring that up. I did my master's in communications, and one of the theories that I looked at in my research essay was called second screen consumption and dual viewing, while you're on your phone while you're watching something. So that's awesome that you brought that up.
Yeah, so I just learned about this, which is kind of terrifying. So I suppose in a way you're not trying. No one is having that conversation on set, but I think you definitely want to be doing things that hook into people, that excite them, that mean that they can put their phone down and get a break from that at least, and kind of engage in some kind of storytelling.
Well, it's that kind of debate of like the active versus the inactive, audience member, right? You know what I mean? You have all these amazing sitcoms like The Office that you can come home from a long day at work, order some pizza, have your phone and just put it on in the background. But then you have the exact opposite of that, where it's you or Lestat in Interview with a Vampire at AMC, where you don't want to do that. You want to push your phone away.
We want active audience members, yeah.
Absolutely. A couple quick questions before we wrap up as well. I mean, Sam Reid is an actor. Acting can also be seen as storytelling. So Sam Reid is a storyteller. What excites you about storytelling, in your opinion?
I think it's gosh, I mean, there's so many things. It's a way that I interpret the world, and it's something that I've always done. So I guess it's kind of like a form of processing for me, and then sharing that, and then it's like it's a shared human experience. So we can put out these archetypes into the world, and then we can all have a shared connection and how we relate to them, and that kind of brings us together at the end of the day. And I think that's what we need more of, is people being brought together as opposed to people being alienated.
Very well said. Absolutely. Does the pace of filming Interview the Vampire change, or is there kind of like a consistent kind of pace of it? Like some days might be long, some days might be quicker, some days, like, I'm just curious, is there an overall pace of filming this season specifically?
While we're filming it specifically?
While you're filming it, because some days will be longer, some days will be like quicker, right? Like, I'm just curious.
There are certain sequences that take longer, so there are certain sequences that we might end up shooting for 3 or 4 days. And there are some things that we shoot incredibly quickly. So it's a mixed bag. Every day is different. I mean, that's part of the joy of this show, is that every day we're doing something quite bonkers, and Roland is sort of madly skilled at just layering all of the things that we have to do on a single day. So you might be speaking in another language while you're kind of like floating in the air, like killing somebody while wearing contacts, while there's a bunch of butterflies flying around the room you're trying to catch. It's just like he just kind of keeps adding on top of having to do like a massive monologue. So yeah, it's always a mixed bag. You never know what you're gonna get.
100%. No, well said. Final question. More Interview of a Vampire is premiering on AMC May 12th, season 2. And they're going to also be able to see it on the AMC Plus as well, which is really exciting as well. Without spoilers, compared to season 1, you talked about a little bit in the beginning of the interview. What can you say? What can we expect from season 2 of Interview of Vampire on AMC, Sam?
I could say that the world cracks open. No, you saw a crack of it in season 1, and now it explodes open. So yeah, it's a much bigger world. There's a lot more vampires. You find out a lot more about the history of them and the lore, and you also learn why the interview is happening. So it's an extraordinary sort of piece of closure, I think, on that, and that when you find that out, you realize why you're watching a thing. It's deep satisfying, and I'd say stick with it to the end, because the end is deeply satisfying.
100%. Your life these days has been like all interviews all the time, whether interviews on a show or interviews for the show, right? you can't escape them.
Yeah.
You can't.
It's a lifestyle now. Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Back to the lifestyle. Absolutely. Interview of Vampire Season 2, AMC and AMC and Plus, May 12th. It's going to be premiering. Sam, thank you so much for your time. It was so great chatting with you.
Yeah, you too. I appreciate it.
This has been Popternative. YouTube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. You can catch Sam Reid as Lestat in Season 2 of Interview with a Vampire, premiering on AMC May 12th. Until next time, this is Sam and Peter Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.